President Donald Trump has imposed 10% tariffs on all goods exported to the US from the UK, with an additional 25% on cars. What does that mean for Britain? What should the Prime Minister be doing next? More importantly, what does it mean for Donald Trump and for his whole approach to making America great again?
Well, joining us now to discuss this is the co-founder of pro-EU advocacy group, Femi Oluwole, who says it's now time to get tough on our special relationship with the US. And chair of the UK branch of Republicans overseas, Greg Swenson, says if the UK tried to get tough on the US, it's going to be a losing battle for the UK. Good morning to you both. Right, Femi, you think we should play tough with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the kind of person who's going to say, bring it on. He doesn't care what happens with us. He just wants US trade protected.
So Trump's position is that if we want to get rid of the tariffs that he's just put on us, then we need to, A, copy his rules and follow his regulations, not be close to the EU. We need to make the NHS pay more for drugs so that Americans can pay less. And given that we do 3 times as much trade with the EU as we do with America, anybody that's looking at Trump and saying, well, let's prioritize trade with America over trade with the EU doesn't care about the UK. Not to mention, in terms of agriculture, he also says he wants to be able to sell American food in here, which would undercut British farmers because America puts chlorine in its chicken, hormones in its beef. It would damage food security in the UK, hurt farmers significantly who are already being undercut by Australian beef because of the post-Brexit trade deals. And he's also been compromising our security because, A, he's been giving a blank check to Putin to say, take Europe for all I care. And his policies in the Middle East are basically compromising our security by painting a target.
You're saying then, don't do a deal with Donald Trump to try and reduce the 10% tariff. All those things are worse. Just pay the 10% tariff.
Oh, well, the price of getting rid of that 10% tariff, which is the estimates say that, well, a 20% tariff would have cost us 0.8% of our economy. So let's say this is 0.4% because it's 10% tariffs. Brexit is costing 4% of our economy. Now, if Donald Trump is telling us you need to get rid of the 10% tariff, which is costing 0.4%, you need to pay lose 4%.
Quite a complicated answer to a simple question. Is it better for Keir Starmer to just accept the 10% tariff, or to try and do a deal on tech regulation, drugs, as you said, food, in order to try and reduce the tariff?
The cost of getting rid of that 10% tariff would be significantly more.
So it's better to pay the tariff?
Better to pay the tariff than lose 4% of your economy via Brexit.
OK, Greg Swenson. Is it a good idea for Keir Starmer to just roll over and take this?
Yeah, I don't think getting into a trade war would be productive for the UK economy. The US obviously is a much larger economy. Exports to the UK are important to us, but not significant in terms of the overall trade. And remember, the consumer is 66% of the US GDP. We don't really depend on imports and exports. There are a long list of reasons why these tariffs make sense right now. But if I were Keir Starmer in the UK, I would take a page out of the American playbook, not as much on tariffs, because it's not that meaningful. It's more deregulation, tax reform, make Britain an attractive place for business. Right now, you're paying 5 times as much for energy, and there's a massive regulatory burden and tax burden.
But your advice to not have a trade war would apply to Europe, China, Vietnam, South Africa. You basically don't think anybody should have a trade war with America. They should just all take it.
It would be destructive, because what President did yesterday, and I thought he did a good job with the chart, is he's just making the tariffs reciprocal. So if the people that are complaining the most actually like tariffs, right? So I don't think it's outrageous to make it reciprocal.
The economics of that is all...
OK, can I just ask something else? Because it is very complex, and I'm not sure what Keir Starmer's going to do. No. And frankly, no one knows what Donald Trump is actually ever going to do. Yeah. So I want to ask a completely different question. Because you're a Republican, Greg. Are you proud of Donald Trump as your president?
Definitely. So far, so good.
Do you think Are you so proud of him that you would like him to run again for a third term?
Yeah, that's, I think, President Trump just messing with people. I think if he said that 10 years ago, I
If
would
you
have
said that he might take over Greenland or Canada, you'd think he's just messing with people.
Right, and this is the art of the deal, and this is how the president, he's very transactional. So he starts with something that's provocative.
Is he going to run for a third term,
Of course not. And same thing with Greenland and Canada. He's provocative, he starts with some outrageous proposal, or outrageous to many, and then settle somewhere in the middle. And I think that's,
OK, because the
unusual.
proposal that has been put into the ether is that someone else might run as president. Donald Trump would be their running mate.
Yeah.
Then the person, perhaps J.D. Vance, would step aside.
Yeah.
Donald Trump could achieve a third term. There would be no tinkering with the 22nd Amendment, the US Constitution.
I'm not sure where in social media you're seeing that, but I would remind you that the president is 78 years old. So I think any of this talk is just a waste of time.
Femi, is it something you worry about?
I think that we should take Trump's threat seriously. This is somebody who is currently blackbagging and kidnapping people for speaking out against America's policies on Palestine. This is somebody who released 1,500 January 6th Capitol rioters, several of whom have gone on to commit offences against children. This is somebody who does really bad stuff.
Can you see a possibility of Donald Trump saying, never mind the restriction on a two-term American president, America loves me, I'm going to run for a third term in whatever way I can?
This is somebody who tried to take the election by force. He told one of the governors to try and find 11,000 extra votes so he could win the previous election. Yeah. This is somebody who does not care about democracy. So yes,
he's also
not to mention being somebody who a court has found guilty of sexual offences against E. Jean Carroll. This is somebody who has no morality at all.
Final word, Greg?
We could go a long list of lawfare and weaponization of the justice system.
You don't believe him?
I'm glad, of course not. And so
it's really important. He explicitly bragged about grabbing women by things.
Yeah.
And yet he was convicted found guilty of that.
Femi, let's
I trust the jury, to be honest.
And I would trust the American voter who elected him, and his numbers went up after that incident. Because
and do you trust the American voters who, in Wisconsin, just voted for the non-Trump candidate and for the Liberal candidate in the Supreme Court election? The American voters in Wisconsin just voted against the Trump candidate.
Well, they voted for Trump in the election.
Yeah,
so
that was then. I'm just wondering now.
So if you want to, if you want to make the argument,
I'm just wondering whether things are shifting away.
If you want to make the argument that this is a proxy vote, or an opinion on President Trump, that's a bit of a stretch. It was for a judge, a Supreme Court judge in Wisconsin.
Elon Musk was saying to people, vote for the other candidate, I'll give you loads of money, and they lost.
It was a get-out-the-vote effort, yeah.
But it didn't work.
And just like Zuckerberg did in 2020. So sometimes those things work, sometimes they don't. 2 Republicans won the special elections in Florida. So, look, I think...
With big swings against them to the Democrats.
Okay.
Smaller margins. I mean, if you want to have an argument about, these off-year elections, they're very low turnout. Yeah. It's very difficult to win those for
Not
Republicans.
arguing, disinterested.
Greg, Femi, we have to leave it there. Thanks both very much
so much,
indeed.
Great.